here's my research, quickly. I know what research people like, it's not like that. Well, we did in southern Alberta, Prairie Rose Division had a bunch of money, a lot of money. They were going to invest in CTF and CTF with the new implementation. They go, well, we got a lot of money. I went to a school superintendent's meeting and talked about CTS and what CTF was going to be. All 13 superintendents afterwards said, that was only supposed to be 15 minutes long. It took us 45 minutes because we had so many questions. They didn't understand necessarily what CTS was and where CTF was supposed to go. So one superintendent came up to me and said, well, we need to do some research in our district. So he hired me to do some background information on this. And what we first of all had to do is find out what their abilities of their staff were. Right? You can't offer options if you don't have someone to teach French. Right? Because they can't do it. So you had to find, first of all, where the expertise was in your school division. So luckily enough, their entire school division jumped on board. We had 98% participation of their staff. This was the data, and the data itself isn't that important, but what we asked was important. We asked, first of all, the position in their school division. Everything from the superintendent down to the educational assistant. We wanted to know who and what could be taught in our school division to our students. The second thing was to ask them the number of, or the years of experience in their school division. And you go, well, what's that important for? Well, they found out we're an old group of people, and we're offering these options, and we don't have any young people to come in. That was the reason why we asked how many years you've been with them. We wanted to know who was going to be around for a while. The next one, understanding what CTS and CTF was. The basic questions, are you comfortable with it, somewhat comfortable, or not comfortable with it at all? And their school division was shocked by what the results were. Then we asked them the expertise in Prairie Rose. So we broke it down into the 22 or 28 occupationals, and we gave them some background. You know, if you were a hunter on the weekend or you were a fisherman, you maybe never taught that, but you have an interest in that, so you fit into wildlife. You have an ability or an interest to teach in that area. You maybe never have done it or are qualified or certified to do it, but you have an interest, right? There was some ability to do it. That was the second last one. And the last one we asked the teachers, what do you think the kids are interested in? They were going to invest this money in their school division. It's a good thing to find out what the kids are interested in, because we're going to put all this money into lab space or PD or whatever it's going to be. Let's do this correctly. So here's some of the findings. First of all, we asked experience. They found out that their CTS teachers, more than half of their CTS teachers were within 5 to 10 years of retirement. All of a sudden, that was half of their people in that area were going to be gone. So we need to start creating something, either finding younger people that want to teach in the areas that we want to promote, or we got to find young people that are willing to teach in a brand new area of interest that the students want. So that was a shock to them. The other one that we asked specifically is how much information. Very knowledgeable, somewhat knowledgeable, limited or no knowledge. If you take a look at all these values here, very knowledgeable, the highest one was the administration and the counselors. They said they were very knowledgeable in CTF and CTS, which we found out after the fact that's not true at all, but that's their job, they better know, right? And then what we found out specifically in CTS, which are the people and the options, that a third of them were limited or had no knowledge of CTS. Meaning they knew their own curriculum, but they couldn't tell you what the physics teacher would do, or they couldn't tell you what the robotics teacher does. Well, and you think, well, why not? Well, how many of you are math teachers and know exactly what the social studies curriculum is? Or what the English curriculum is? So it's impossible to know it. So to them, how can you promote and create a system if nobody is comfortable or knows exactly what CTS or CTF is? So they saw there was a big educational factor in their school division that they didn't know about. So here is the teacher's expertise results, the top 10 or top 8. They had 70% of their staff were comfortable with teaching something in the foods industry, services, food production, that kind of thing. And it works its way down. Recreation, tourism, all the way to 44% of the teachers could teach wildlife. This is what the teachers thought the kids were interested in. They said 93% of the students were interested in food. Well, there's a shocker, right? They're kids. But this works down, and we see some similarities and some that are not. So what we did is compare the teacher expertise and what they thought the kids were interested in. We saw some similarities, right? Foods, there's the ability to do that. Recreation, tourism, communication, wildlife. But what they did notice, which was shocking, These major areas, robotics, construction, mechanics, cosmetology, they didn't have people to teach it, even though they know that the kids are interested in it. So as a school division, there's some investment money. That's maybe where we should start looking. And what we did at the very end of this, we then went and interviewed and surveyed the kids. We had over 900 students do the survey, along with their parents. And here's the results. Student interest, the #1 student interest in southern Alberta, just outside of Medicine Hat, 2/3 of the students were interested in wildlife. Meaning everything from conservation to hunting or fishing. Right? Big continuum within wildlife. The staff perception was pretty high. But there's only 24% of their staff that could teach it or were comfortable in teaching somewhere in that area. This last column here showed what the Alberta government is saying. We have a dire need in these particular areas. For example, in the foods area, which is #2 here, student interest was 56%, way lower than what the staff perception was, way lower. The staff knowledge, only 39% of the teachers were willing to teach it, but it is the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, the 12th, and 21st greatest in demand jobs here in Alberta, in the food industry. All of a sudden, trustees were interested. What are you talking about? We've got a whole bunch of things that are growing here, and we have some student interest, but we don't have staff to teach those kids in those areas that are in demand over the next 25 years. So all of these, you notice in this course area, there isn't a lawyer, there isn't an accountant, there isn't a teacher, there isn't a doctor. All of these particular areas here, in demand, in the top 25, and I have that stat on another page, there isn't an in demand for any of those professional positions here in Alberta. They're all in the CTF, CTS world. And that's in my other CTS presentation.